Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar by the Osiris project funded by Interreg Europe. Osiris stands for Open Social Innovation Policies driven by co-creative regional innovation ecosystems. So it is all about finding new ways of engaging citizens and policymakers in activities that make their lives better in many ways. My name is Yvonne Backholm. I work at Åbo Academy University, the campus in Vaasa, Finland, and I will be your moderator today. This is the fourth in a series of webinars that the Osiris partners are launching to seek answers to questions like, what did we learn from working with co-creation, open and social innovation for regional development during the pandemic? And as you hear, talking about co-creation, working together, sitting around a table, brainstorming, innovating, that changed almost overnight, and we had to find new ways of doing that. So what learning experiences do we take with us for the future? And what smart solutions or insights from this period will actually change the way we work? This webinar is brought to you by the lead partner, Region Västerbotten in Sweden, and partners Åbo Academy University and the Regional Council of Ostrobothnia in Finland. And today we will share with you results from an evaluation of the open social innovation activities in the shadow of COVID-19, carried out by Experience Lab at Åbo Academy University. We will draw some conclusions, share personal experiences, even be a bit philosophical, and also give you examples how a region tackled their development process during the pandemic. So stay with us for the coming hour. I would like to remind you that you can post questions and comments in the chat here on YouTube, but remember that you have to be logged on to YouTube to be able to do that. Okay, let's go. Let me start by giving the screen to Lars Wallrup of the lead partner Region Västerbotten. He will give you some personal reflections as well as open up a very important question for the future. Take it away, Lars.
Thank you, and hello. My name is Lars, as Yvonne said, and I represent the region of Västerbotten. My daily main focus is on developing strategies, methods, and activities to implement the regional policy instruments in Västerbotten. But now I'm just going to reflect a little bit around this theme for the webinar, the new normal, reinventing regional development. And I want to start with the normal part and wait with the new one to a little later. Open social innovation as a strategy, method, and tool is an important factor in Västerbotten in the process and in the development work. We have, through long-term and systematic work, been able to develop the ability and increase the ability for collaboration and cooperation between the regional actors. And OSI has become a key part of the newly decided regional development strategy, which we have to implement now, and that is valid until 2030, I think it is. And one can say that OSI is an integrated DNA within the region. It has prepared us to be able to face the great opportunities and challenges that come from the massive investments that are linked to the new Green Deal, the green transition that is taking place with massive investments that is pouring into the region now. To give just a point of reference of the scope, there will be need of approximately 100,000 new people into the region in the northern parts of Sweden within 10 to 15 years old. Not old, into 10 to 15 years. And this creates major challenges and possibilities. In order to handle those, the ability to collaborate and create and innovate are key factors. So far, so good. Those are more or less already integrated, and that's what's the normal part. And now to the new one. The pandemic changed the rules and the name of the game. Nothing really became normal. We suddenly had to adapt to new circumstances to handle the unexpected. And as a trend guru has it up, in 10 weeks, something happened that would otherwise have taken 10 years to develop, namely how we were forced to find new forms to be able to communicate, collaborate, and meet, as we do here and now. 2 years ago, we would not have been able to conduct a seminar like this, across borders, regional and national, between businesses and competencies. We work with regional development. And region is formally defined by its territorial boundaries, but functionally, one could claim that the real region consists of those who share common interests and problems, a kind of region plus, as in the Osiris project, like in the very exciting webinar this Thursday in our series. And many thanks to our Portuguese friends for that. I've really learned a lot of important stuff on cybersecurity by this seminar. So my conclusion is that the combination of the normal and the new has the potential to really reinvent regional development, to be the new normal, to be able to handle what is planned and to meet the unexpected. And something about the unexpected. We all share now the crisis we live in that has created many unexpected problems and opportunity to solve. So I will stay there. Thanks for the attention. And now back to Yvonne and to the real substance of this seminar.
Thank you very much, Lars. Yeah, I think it's an important reminder that an innovation ecosystem, this fairly abstract term, is truly made up by individuals and all that comes with that. And yeah, the question of what a region really is or is going to be is something I think we all need to think about working with regional development. Yeah, from this initial reflection, we will move over to facts and figures. Kimmo Rautanen of Experience Lab at Åbo Academy University will share research results with us. And he will also introduce the study that we have conducted within the Osiris project himself. Kimmo, the screen is yours.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kimmo Rautanen. I work at Åbo Academy University Experience Lab, and I will share some of the results from our survey into digital co-creation in pandemic conditions. First, I will briefly explain the setup. Then I'll go through the view of the stakeholders or participants. Then we will look at the process leaders, the project partners view, and finally look at opportunities and challenges that were identified and some conclusions of the survey. The main points first, perhaps the results as a teaser. There was a digital leap after some early confusion. Online was felt to be efficient, convenient, and helping people to participate, but it does require rethinking of work, and it requires that those who are leading the process make sure to plan, prepare, and spend effort and time on the facilitation as well. Make sure to know your tools and use them right. as I mentioned, the evaluation survey was about how did we experience the pandemic and going online, and above all, going online almost overnight in 2020, when most processes had been planned to take place through physical meetings, at least to a certain extent. Our aim was to capture those experiences while they were fresh, to support the new practices that evolve now that we have entered a so-called new normal with elements of both physical and online, the hybrid world, if you will. We did this through a survey questionnaire to stakeholders and through interviews with project partners and key stakeholders. 7 interviews in all, 57 responses to the survey. Looking first at what the stakeholders had to say. First, we asked them to the stakeholders rated some statements regarding the co-creation process on a scale from 1 to 7, where 1 was about disagreeing completely and 7 about agreeing completely. And as is evident by the numbers, statements such as, "It was a nice experience, it enabled me to come up with new ideas, and the interaction was pleasant," got quite high ratings. So people were overall quite satisfied with how things turned out. More specific questions such as, did you understand the aim of the process? Were the digital tools easy to use? Did the process feel successful? And so on, gained a almost staggeringly positive response. Out of 57 respondents, at least 90% were positive. And all but 2 were also happy to, based on their experience, to recommend participation in a similar process to other people. The more specific question of whether the working process felt successful garnered some of these comments. The goal of the project was accomplished and even exceeded because we could give the project a new direction. And it felt like a success because it was possible to continue actions. Sometimes it went even faster, even though it has to be noted, not everything was a success. Some things also have fallen by the wayside. The digital tools gave everyone a better chance to get their thoughts and opinions across, and it would make sense to combine physical and digital in the future. And they also coined the term the new normal. It was a clear transition from previous habits, but it turned out quite well. There were, of course, some howevers, yes, but answers among the positives. Not all the processes that we evaluated were all like each other. They were quite different, and thus the results are generic rather than specific. It's hard to pinpoint specific characteristics. Many people were talking about distance work in general or digitalization of work in general, rather than actual open social innovation processes. The field is wide and the definitions are a bit unclear. That means that people tended to mix these up a bit as well. The general experience of work during the pandemic was positive rather than negative. And it also showed changes for almost a third of people over time. Mostly the changes were for the positive. And people saw that there were advantages to working online, save time, save money. There was more focus on the content of the work when you were working online, often from home. On the other hand, they noticed also that the social side perhaps suffered a bit. And at first, the feeling was we'll manage with or without COVID. The energy stayed positive. Some people experienced some kind of fatigue afterwards, but in the end, it was okay. Lessons learned, as stated by stakeholders. It isn't always necessary to meet in person, especially when you have only practical issues to solve. Strategic discussions and inspirational talks, however, are better live. And when you can't meet in person, there are more ways to communicate available, but ensuring that everybody participates in communication takes more of an effort of the organizer because you have to keep track of more channels. So online process guidance is important. Chairing and hosting an online meeting is really a different profession than hosting a physical meeting. Turning then to what the project partners who were leading the processes had to say. We had, in the interviews, we started from 6 general themes, from the experiences of working online to the process itself, its background, aims and participants, the tools and methods used, participation and creativity, and of course the results. And the 7th theme, leadership, emerged from the interviews as a strong topic that we hadn't kind of planned on beforehand, but that had been noticed by many that it was an important topic in the circumstances. And the themes and reasoning mirror those of stakeholders, but there was more focus on the organization and the longer processes than on individuals or, for instance, single events or meetings. We asked the project partners for pro tips on planning and leading processes online or in a hybrid shape, and they came up with a number of good ideas to keep in mind. Prepare for anything. Be flexible, adapt, trust the process, and don't be scared. Plan as carefully as you can, be patient, listen, and respect the participants. Look at the task from the participants' perspective is important. Trust people, involve them, and use their differences as a strength. And an important point is to create a safe space for everyone to participate, an inclusive environment where people feel invited and welcome. Make sure there is a clear framework for what you're doing and display the logic, not just what you're aiming at, but also the means how to get there. Make sure to communicate constantly on any issues that may emerge and be clear about your instructions. Also be clear in leading the process. Choose the right tools for the right occasion, according to needs. Don't overuse or confuse with fancy tools that have functions you don't really need. Make sure to use the best possible connection and setup. And if you can, please keep the cameras on. Create dynamics in the meetings. Make sure to mix the presentations with small group discussions, with chats and such. Keep the meetings interactive from the beginning. Everybody needs to get heard. Make the process exciting. Keep a positive attitude. It can be fun to work online as well. And use an external facilitator to lead the process if you can't or won't do it yourself. Go hybrid. Mix the digital and the physical. Accommodate for communication in other ways than words. And as for the participants, you also need to prepare. Say no if you don't have the time to participate properly. And for both organizers and participants, make sure that you know tools and methods. And training was recommended by process leaders and stakeholders both. Training on online tools and remote work. Turning then to some of our conclusions. We didn't conduct a proper SWOT analysis as such, but we identified some opportunities or possibilities that have been identified, as well as a number of challenges that need to be addressed when designing hybrid or online processes. The mindset is, of course, important. Always keep thinking, yes, we can. And uncertainty fosters creativity. This is true, but it comes perhaps down to the process leader to make sure to pick the signals up and take them along if need be. Online does permit broader participation, both locally and worldwide, and at different stages of the process, so you get more people on board, generally speaking. And online meetings are cheaper and save time. The digital transformation itself can create new mindsets. As an example, craftsmen make web shops. In one of our partner projects, a group of people who are used to working quite traditionally used the digital transformation as a means to create a new marketing strategy for themselves. Working online requires more clear and concise processes. This supports better communication, but keeping up and encouraging the communication is, of course, the responsibility of the process leader. Overall, benchmarking the experiences and best practices of the last 2 years offer plenty of learning opportunities for the next processes. And online provides the opportunity to redefine and rethink things, such as the concept of a region. Is it geographical, as we usually have thought? Is it about the type of activity or the ambitions of the people who kind of make it up, or what is it about? And as for the challenges, some people resist change, perhaps those with vested interests in something. Policies and governance may be looking to a return to status quo. So this means that a change doesn't occur of itself. It needs to be kept on the agenda to redesign. Choosing the right mode of meetings and methods for every task is important. People have expressed a preference for physical meetings for ideation and co-creation, online for routine work. On the other hand, we know that co-creation is something that we are interested in taking online as well. So this is one of the main challenges perhaps to tackle. Timetables and scheduling circumstances are different, and overambitious and not user-friendly tools can kill creativity and motivation. This is also one of the sources of the digital fatigue that some people have expressed. And coming back now to perhaps the main points, the most important learnings of the survey, there was a sense of accomplishment. We are tired but happy we did it. And there was a digital leap on many occasions, in many instances. The hybrid model is here to stay, and while there are pros and cons with both physical and online work, the right mix can give you the best of both worlds. However, it takes good planning, clear instructions, open communication, and good facilitation. They all take some effort, but they are essential for keeping everyone on board, for getting a good result. And as I was hinting at earlier, going online or hybrid requires rethinking of work overall. The new normal needs an open mind. And what are the concrete outcomes of the process, apart from that we have conducted an evaluation? The main result is a guide and checklist for leading a co-creation or innovation process, hybrid or online. The checklists are divided into 3 phases, that is, before, during, and after the process. They are divided into 5 themes: the aims and results of the process, the tools, running the process, the participant angle or inclusion, creativity, and communication, and the organizer angle in a way, facilitation and leadership. We also include a framework for evaluation divided into successes, challenges, insights, needs to change, and the means to make those changes. And some tips on supporting expertise that can be employed, as well as digital tools for topics and tasks during the process. The checklist, as well as the report with the complete results of the survey, will be available later this month on our website at Åbo Academy, as well as on the Interreg Osiris project website. And that was all I have to say at the moment. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I'll try to answer them as well as I can. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Kimmo. And yes, I hope you can take the opportunity of actually commenting and reflecting on your own experiences in the chat, and of course, pose questions to Kimmo if you have them. He already mentioned that the results will be shared on the Osiris webpage and on our social media channels later on this month. So let's move over to actually see how a region tackled the development processes during the pandemic and what learning experiences they will take with them for the future. We have Johanna Dahl of the Regional Council of Ostrobothnia here with us, and she will share their experiences. Johanna, your turn.
Thank you very much, Yvonne, and hello, everyone. My name is Johanna Dahl, and I'm representing the Regional Council of Ostrobothnia, one of the regional partners in the Osiris project. As Yvonne said, I will in my presentation give a regional perspective on the Osiris evaluation survey that Kimmo presented. But first, looking a bit more broadly, I have divided my talk into 3 different parts. First, I will tell you a bit about our regional context so that you understand from which perspective I'm talking about co-creation. Then I will share some of our experiences of working with co-creation, innovation in energy transition, a very timely topic at the moment. And lastly, I will zoom in upon our takeaways from the Osiris survey. The region of Ostrobothnia is situated on the west coast of Finland. The region has a rather business-driven innovation ecosystem. Companies invest around 200 million euros annually in research and development activities, whereas public investments stand for only a small part of this amount. The region is globally known for its energy technology cluster and leading technological solutions for example, renewable energy production. And as much as 90% of Finland's research and development work within electricity and automation is done here. And in this very specific energy context, the triple helix innovation modes functions very well. And it serves very much the purpose of creating excellent regional preconditions for developing new energy solutions to be exported from here. So paradoxically, we can say that the green transition is a huge opportunity for the companies at the same time as it's a great challenge for the whole society. And researchers note, in fact, that technological innovations might run the risk of falling flat without fundamental social changes in, for example, patterns of consumption and production. And therefore, we need to combine these new technologies also with other forms of innovations and to make sure that they deliver different kinds of benefits for the society. And here the Osiris project has been really valuable in lifting up and increasing our knowledge on open social innovation and bringing this topic on the regional agenda very early on. Then in talking about our experiences of co-creation and innovation, I will start to draw upon a co-creation process on energy transition that was recently run in the region of Ostrobothnia within the REPEAT project. And what characterized this process was a deliberate decision to go beyond the usual suspects when it comes to new energy solutions in the region and listen into the needs for actions, but also policy development from citizens and village associations and other forms of organizations as well. And this was a new approach, not only for our innovation ecosystem, but also considering that the energy system in Finland has a long tradition of being very centralized. And now focus was instead put on decentralized and local solutions connected to local resources found, for example, out in the villages. So what were then our insights from this process? Let's first turn our eyes to the table's left side and see what went well. We succeeded in creating an ambitious pathway of actions running to 2030. But more importantly, I would like to say that we succeeded in creating ownership and having actors starting to take these actions forward on their own. The results were not business as usual this time. We did not end up having technologically and engineering-driven needs this time. However, one of the challenges that we run across was the fact that companies dropped out quite soon in the process. It was a very time-consuming process to implement. The input that we got from the participants was quite scattered, and it required a lot of elaboration between the workshops and the meetings that we held. But it was worthwhile doing because the results that we got were very ambitious. And one of the things that we take with us is that we need to clearly communicate the value of the participants' different perspectives. I don't know how many times during this process that the participants said, "I'm not an energy expert, but," and then shared the experiences. So we really need to consciously balance the different perspectives. Otherwise, there's a risk that we value technical expertise higher and lose other types of insights. It was an important process from a policy development perspective. For example, as there are current regulations that impede some of the actions that the stakeholders brought forward and saw as important for bringing the energy transition forward. But it's also challenging to create a truly functioning quadruple helix process, particularly keeping the interest of the companies if their interests are not put at the very center. And now we were even thinking about, to some extent, competing solutions. This means that we might need to consider also having different types of discovery process targeting the different types of stakeholder groups in energy transition to really find out the needs and expectations that they have on research and innovation activities. But then, of course, this implies that we also need tools and ways of working for merging these outcomes of the process, because that's very important. And it's also key to have someone having or taking an intermediary role and having the skills to communicate with the different stakeholder groups in their language and on their terms. But now let's turn our focus to some of the digital elements of co-creation and to the Osiris evaluation survey that Kimmo also presented. And particularly looking at what we will take with us from this work. In the Osiris survey, 14 of the 57 answers come from Ostrobotnian stakeholders. We have had 6 respondents who participated in the interviews, and we also held one focus group discussion with stakeholders to verify the conclusions and to discuss the results. So it's been a quite extensive process and data set to work with. And overall, our stakeholders were satisfied with the digital innovation process implemented in the region and analyzed in this survey. We had a look upon 2 different types of process. But as you can see also here in the numbers on the screen, our stakeholders were a bit more critical than stakeholders from the other regions. But what's important to note here is that the co-creation part succeeded in the digital format as well. The stakeholders note that they were to a large extent able to come up with new ideas, get new knowledge, and in particular, the Finnish stakeholders state that they could make others aware of their knowledge and get their ideas through. And I will get back to this later on. And what then did the process leaders in Ostrobotnia say? Well, they were also very satisfied. The participation increased and new groups were involved in the region. At the same time, we of course need to reflect upon the question if someone was left out or not reached due to the digital format, and that's good to keep in mind. And the results were good. It was stated that we got more and better information from the participants, and the reason for this probably lies in a number of reasons or factors such as tools used, preparation done, and so on. But all in all, these are fantastic results. So what are then the insights that we take with us? Well, first of all, I would like to turn the attention to the checklist developed and that Kimmo talked about, and the fact that we will use it. The checklist is really useful. It clearly shows where attention should be directed and what to keep in mind. And importantly, it can be easily adapted to different types of process and contexts. The results of the Osiris survey also shows the importance of evaluating the co-creation process and going beyond just a simple yes/no question on satisfaction, and to actually evaluate from both the perspective of the participants and the process leader's point of view to really understand the process. To give you an example, in one of the earlier slides, you could see the statements from our process leaders, and one stated that, well, participating in the process and the design of the process might have been a bit boring for the participants, while the feedback from the participants and our stakeholder was in fact that the co-creation part succeeded very well. So with that being said, we shouldn't be afraid of evaluating. In fact, the results might be, we might be positively surprised by the results. Second, one of the themes in the checklist is the leadership dimension. And I would like to stress that this can be defined both as the process leader, but also organizational leadership. And both are, of course, important. And organizational leadership is particularly important in or before the process and after the process. And this is something that we take with us as well. Now we need to keep momentum of the good practices and the new routines developed. As we have concluded today, the digital elements of co-creation are here to stay, but the work done is by no means finished. We're still facing the question of how we truly rethink our work. How do we avoid to not only paste digital elements on old process? And this also relates to a question of what are the resources that we will actually put in to the digital process in the future, or the hybrid process. What are the skills and competences required by the people leading this process and the employees? And now, as Kimmo also stated, we're moving into hybrid phases that can give more and better results, but that also require a lot in terms of time, skills, and resources. Again, we need to experiment and evaluate to find the right mode. And here the checklist might be a very good use again. Finally, keep everyone on board and create engagement in jointly taking the results forward. We see in our process often that participants tend to contribute with a rather specific need, topic, or competence in the co-creation process. And this was also shown in the evaluation results from our stakeholders. They rated, as you perhaps remember, very highly that they had been able to make others aware of their own knowledge and their own ideas. And a conclusion of this is that that in working with regional development process, it's important to take these specific contributions and put them into a larger context, give a more holistic view, and break silos. So creating a joint understanding of where we're going, why, and how is a key element and key purpose to keep in mind, no matter what the format of the process is. And that will be my final conclusion for today. So I thank you very much for your attention. And now I hope to see you in the chat so that we can discuss further. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Johanna. It was really interesting to listen to your talk and how you're actually making use of the checklist and the study and the results from there. It would be really good if the rest of you who have have comments or questions would join Johanna and Kimmo in the chat now and perhaps share your own experiences. I got the feeling that really it is now that the work starts to actually look at the hybrid world, to get our leaders on board, to allocate resources, to perhaps influence the policy instruments guiding us and so on. So it's, yeah, really interesting. This webinar is soon drawing to a close. But before we end, I would like to give the screen to Umberto Pernice, the consultant to the lead partner and acting project manager of Osiris. Umberto has lived with our project from the very start, through the pandemic and now. So who better to reflect on the challenges and opportunities of open social innovation during all these times than him? Please, Umberto.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. And hello, everybody. It's really a great pleasure being with you. And so, yes, as Yvonne was saying, I had the pleasure and the honor of managing these very challenging projects, Osiris, from the very beginning. And today I will try to emphasize some concluding remarks about how the project moved throughout the pandemic. So I'll try to give broader but also quick overview of the lessons learned. You may see in this picture a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, some of us in Brussels for a very important co-creation event during the European Week of Regions and Cities, and then a period of empty seats later on. Osiris, as I was mentioning, started several years ago, actually in 2016. The aim of this Interreg project is to boost open and social innovation, which means the adoption of open software, open data for social purposes, for societal challenges, using a very strong co-creation approach. And all of these, of course, for boosting regional development. This project, which was almost a 5 years project, ended really at the very beginning of the pandemic. We had the chance of proposing and then winning a kind of new project, which can be considered, if you like, a prolongation or an extension of Osiris, but it is also a new project in the sense that we wanted to understand how the impact of COVID changed somehow the approaches for open and social innovations, and also the policies for open and social innovation that we developed in the previous 56 months, considering, of course, the new international setting, which was characterized by the, of course, the introduction of the European Green Deal and the recovery plan to face with the impact of COVID. So this webinar is one of a series of webinars foreseen in the project, where we are trying to share what we have learned from these additional 12 months of Osiris. In this short overview, we can definitely say that the pandemic impacted the implementation of open and social innovation policies for regional development, at least by limiting all our face-to-face interactions, which, as I was saying, are particularly key for stimulating open and social innovation and co-creation. Try to imagine that in the previous 56 months or so, the previous phases of the project, we had these good practices, one of these being the innovation loop, where we had the chance of meeting all of us together, engaging the quadruple helix. So this means researchers, citizens, policymakers, and businesses, and co-creating in several roundtables using open data, open software. Well, try to imagine the big limitation that the restrictions for traveling created during the pandemic, and how all these limited, of course, then the development of new projects. You have seen through the survey illustrated by Kimmo, and also the uptake shown by Joanna, how we tried to handle the limitation of the face-to-face interaction through this online approach, and then under hybrid modes, which combine, of course, remote and physical presence. Another limitation was, of course, another impact was, of course, the fact that the pandemic was feeding a climate of strong social and economic uncertainty about the future, and also increasing inequality within and across countries and regions. You remember the restrictions affecting maybe one region and not another, or one city and not another, and therefore the strong inequality during a big part of the pandemic period. And then also the impact in terms of rising geopolitical instability. But overall, we can say that the impact of coronavirus was, it overall increased the awareness about how fragile we are, the human society, and the planet. We saw, as a contradiction, that the positive impact that the lockdown restrictions made on several aspects, including the quality of air, the quality of water, and therefore maybe a positive impact in the climate change. So with this project, with these additional 12 months, we understand that we had to reconsider several important aspects for boosting regional development. One of these is that the pandemic impacted not only one sector, the health sector, but several sectors apparently not immediately connected. So from the tourism to the transport to the energy. And therefore, co-creation and open social innovation had to consider in a more systemic and holistic manner the interconnections between these sectors. Still, the response from the government had to be shorter because of the emergency, because of the last-minute restrictions and measures that governments at several levels had to make, so at municipal, at regional, at national, and the response had to be had to consider this multi-governments approach. So more collaboration at a multi-level scale that, as we know, is very difficult, because it's already difficult, at one administrative level, handling the conflicts between policymakers. So we understood the need of facing more complexity at the three level, national, regional, and local, because of the impact of the pandemic. The reprioritization of the financial sourcing and allocation because of the limited resources, and as we all know, the urgency of allocating resources for the health sector, but then later on, because of the impact in other interconnected sectors, the need to allocate resources in other industries, not immediately directly connected. So as we said, from tourism to transport to energy and so on. Still, the need to better to increase the role of citizen in the participatory governance. So the inequality that we were mentioning between regions and between cities or countries increased the need of thinking at tools and approaches for having citizens more engaged in the co-creation process for policymaking. And this means, of course, reconsidering easier and more effective methods and tools for collaboration, and trying to understand how to easily uptake these methods and tools. And of course, increasing the efforts towards strengthening human resilience. These were let's say the 6 main aspects that we may say at a project level we understood. And all these, all these aspects, all this learning from this aspect helped us to revisit the role of open social innovation for regional development, the changes needed in our regional policy instruments. So how to make the most of this learning for modifying the policy instrument, and which capabilities are needed within each region for uptaking these challenges under this new normal approach, which combines, remote and physical under a new hybrid, unforeseen way of working. This is what we may capture in the sentence that we used here, reinventing regional development. So with this brief talk, I want to, of course, thank all the partners from the countries that took part in this beautiful experience of Osiris, hoping that this project will continue, will boost collaboration for open innovation and social innovation in a combined manner under this new normal approach. There are more information which are available, of course, on the website. And I will pass the floor now to Yvonne, which I believe will also introduce some of these remarks in a short video. Of course, feel free to come back to me for any question you may have. It will be a pleasure to stay a little bit more in the chat. So thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you so much, Umberto, for your presentation, and also thank you very much for steering the group with a firm and positive hand during these years. As Umberto pointed out, you can still comment and post questions in the chat. We will be online for a bit more. And I would also like to remind you that the final webinar in our series will be streamed here next Thursday, September 15. And it comes from our partner in Drenthe in the Netherlands and deals with the topic of communities in control, how to run a successful community project. So welcome to tune in again on this channel at 2 o'clock Central European Time. But for now, this webinar closes with a video that sums up our experiences of working with open social innovation during the pandemic. Take care and thank you.
The COVID pandemic brought numerous changes, not least in the area of open social innovation. The challenge is obvious. How can we innovate openly and socially in a restricted society? What are the best practices and what ways forward can we find in order to support innovation in online and hybrid settings? This is what the Osiris Interreg project wanted to find out in its second phase.
The changing landscape made it very important to actually find best practices, to test solutions, and to study and report on these. It was very crucial to take with us the experiences and learnings from working during the pandemic when designing new hybrid forms of online co-creation.
Osiris Interreg's final conference took place in Almedalen, the most important yearly public policy-making event in Sweden. Partners showcased best practices for online regional development and shared some encouraging results from hands-on trials.
Hackathon is a great methodology to implement new ideas, to new concepts, and create startups, create projects, but also to engage communities to discover themselves and innovate.
There is an app for tracking and walking and cycling routes in Drenthe. And on the route there were several craft industries. And that appeared to be a good instrument for marketing.
The results of the different activities were validated by a study carried out within the project.
We found that innovation made a true digital leap, one that people actually embraced after a few initial hurdles, because they found it efficient, convenient, and it opened possibilities for getting new actors into the ecosystems of regional development. However, planning and facilitation is even more crucial in an online setting. You have to make sure that you know the tools, that you use them right, and that you get everyone involved. Yeah, so the best way forward would be a good mix, a hybrid setup where physical and online elements are used according to their strengths.
Partners and stakeholders are now analysing what to keep of all the things they've learned from working and innovating during the pandemic. Of utmost importance is not to lose sight of the need to work together, no matter what obstacles there are.
There's a common lowest denominator that consists of 3 words to be successful when you talk about open social innovation. That is co-creation, it's cooperation, and it's collaboration.
The consensus is clear. There is no going back to simply doing things the way they've always been done. Everyone involved will have to improve and sharpen innovation processes through all that has been learned in the online activities. And while we're not quite there yet, the road is being paved, and Osiris Phase 2 has shone a light on how processes could improve.
The pandemic has brought a lot of challenges, that's for sure, but we're also seeing many new possibilities opening up now. So let's take advantage of them.
Some key findings and conclusions are disseminated through a series of webinars, available on the Osiris Interreg YouTube channel.